Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, we're bringing you highlights of a panel discussion that we did in Chennai. We're traveling to 20 such cities across the country, speaking one-on-one, face-to-face with SME entrepreneurs, listening to some of the highlights of that panel discussion, talking about the changing SME landscape. When we saw the announcement of the industrial policy of 2018 that came out, of course, earlier this year, for the first time, there was great emphasis laid on MSMEs. For the first time, we saw commentary coming for MSMEs. So to everyone who is on this panel, my question really is in terms of how much of this perhaps is a political move, how much of this is maybe playing to the gallery in some sense, given that MSMEs are the most important section of the business, given their size, 58 million that we're talking about for the government, and also given the fact that we are talking in the backdrop really of what's happening in terms of the elections coming up next year.
Whatever has happened during the last 4 years, the SME industry has really been shattered, I am sorry to say, by the various policies, including this demonetization, and also the hasty implementation of GST. Though GST is an ideal tax structure itself. Unfortunately, without telling the people in detail, without advising the procedure formalities properly, it has been suddenly implemented and putting SMEs and very small micro units into serious strife. And as far as SMEs are concerned, demonetization has very seriously hit them. Because of the credit needs of the small SME sector, less than 25% is met by the banks and the agencies like that. 75% of the credit needs is somebody else.
Sure.
All those pipelines have been clogged, if not completely stopped.
You have a different view.
I'll take a different approach to this. So get down to the DNA of the entrepreneur. He or she is unhappy with the system, wants to bring about a disproportionate change by what he or she tries in the company. So that's where it starts. So I don't see it philosophically matching to actually depend on the system for getting bootstrapped. Right? So you are unhappy with the system, you want to bring about a change, run the game. So the government, I'll be happy if the government focuses on removing headaches, speeding things up, reducing obstacles rather than giving freebies and other kind of short-lived boosts.
Not all entities get venture funding. So the only other, there are two other ways in which you can fund yourself. One is the revenue accruals. And if you are in a business which generates a lot of cash, then you can keep on growing based on that cash. If that is not there in businesses, then debt funding is the only way to do it. Right? So bulk of the businesses will have to somehow get their funding through loans. And some kind of formalization of the system is absolutely required. And that is not there today. That is why when he's talking about demonetization and how it affected the grey market route of getting your loans, they were seriously affected. They were all primarily cash loans affecting you. But you kill that, where is the alternate clean way of getting funding in loans in some sensible form? Now the recent announcement of getting MSME loans in a very less than an hour, it's a great idea. I still have to see whether it is actually going to happen.
From a women's perspective, what I'd like to say is, yes, there are enough schemes for us. And the ground reality is most women who are homepreneurs or starting off do not know about these schemes, and they don't know which door to knock because they keep moving from one place to another, get frustrated and just give up. So I think we are killing some of the women entrepreneurs by not knowing the right procedure. There are no right agencies who can guide you. And if you do come under somebody, then there are, routes here and there which they have their own cuts and commissions. So at the end of the day, women who want to start off feel demotivated and just leave it at times.
I think this kind of announcement is especially only election oriented. Soon you will see agriculture loans which will come into the foray, and women also will, loans for women also will come very handy during the elections. After that everybody will forget, next government will be formed, and the fate will be the same thing for us.
Research shows that of the 21 or so, nationalized banks, 11 are not funding at all in the present situation due to what's happening as far as the NPA crisis is concerned. We all are aware of the fact that the NPA crisis is at 10-year highs or lows, however you want to look at it. In this situation, everyone has been talking about funding and what really entrepreneurs are facing. My question is, what is the solution? I do know, loans in terms of NBFCs, peer-to-peer funding, etc., where technology is being used are becoming more. But before we come and talk specifically about some of those tech solutions, just a broad base to this entire panel in terms of one or two solutions that you think entrepreneurs can look at. Badri raised the point of equity funding versus debt funding. That's definitely a solution.
She said, equity funding is not easy. There are hundreds of sectors which will never get equity funding because where are those funds which are going after those particular sectors? So debt funding and own revenue accruals is only the only way. And businesses are going to fail. Startups are going to fail. So you have to somehow factor in a failing business not paying the loans they have taken as very much part of the the whole process of creation and destruction in the business space. Then how do you account for NPAs? I think one way of dealing with this, it's been talked about, it has not really been happening in this country, credit guarantee funds.
We want innovators. We want ideas which are disruptive. But many of these ideas will come up from inexperienced entrepreneurs, youngsters who have original ideas, who are used to thinking out of the box. So somebody should be there to mentor them, guide them, see that these ideas, some of them may not be practical, some of them will be eminently practical, but cannot be implemented for want of other facilities, infrastructure. So there should be a group of angel investors, successful businessmen who have already proved themselves, who are already earned some money, who are waiting eagerly to return something to the society. Such people should come up and say that, yes, we are here to guide you, to mentor you, to take you through the various difficult processes of starting an industry.
I think the key is, as Badri mentioned, entrepreneurs will fail. And if a certain section of entrepreneurs do not fail, then there's no entrepreneurship, there's no fun in that. As NASSCOM, I think we work a lot with startups. And we have startup hubs in many states where we would bring in startups, incubate them in the way, and even expose them to funding channels, expose them to tech channels, and expose them to markets. I think this is a full cycle of startup. It's not, so one of them alone is not enough. I think it is important to generate money from the business than for the business. Yeah. I think that is the spirit of innovation.
Sure.
I mean, we have seen a huge amount of, there is funding available in different, government is only one channel, but if an innovator is promising enough, there are funding available. It is difficult, no journey is easy, no funding is easy, but yes, funding is available. The point is, a lot of entrepreneurs do not cross that barrier because they are more, sometimes they get into this trap of generating funding for the business than from the business. I think if we are able to balance that, a lot of expectations on funding becomes dead easy.
Also, what we need to do is look beyond funding, right? At some point of time. So funding is not the only aspect of running a business. It starts at registering your company, for example, and then compliances, government, labor compliances. There are more than 50 labor compliances a company has to follow, right? And there are like monthly deadlines. For some compliances, there are weekly deadlines, and these are labor compliances you have to follow. Else there are penalties. Registering a company, for example, would take a month or two in India, whereas in the UK you can get for 1 or 2 hours, right? That is how you enable entrepreneurship. That is how you enable, you make complex labor laws simple, and you let company run themselves. Even if you get funded, there are so many obstacles right now to run a business. And we at Vakilsearch, we see so many entrepreneurs failing over there, where they don't have the money to hire legal counsel to do their compliances.
Adding on to what you're saying, to actually look at collaboration as one of the modes to actually increase your business. Work on your core areas, collaborate with people, because when two great minds or two great businesses come together, you are able to generate a lot of not only money, but also a lot of business.
We're going to take a very quick break on that note, but we'll continue bringing you the highlights as well as that engagement with the audience in Chennai, talking about how the SME landscape is changing. Do stay tuned. Back after the short break. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. And tonight on the show, we're continuing to bring you highlights of a panel discussion and grand event that we did in Chennai, talking about how the SME landscape is changing there, and also some of the things to keep in mind, including the use of technology as well as government schemes and the role of funding in an entrepreneur's life. Listen.
Increasingly, especially with more and more NBFCs, it is definitely becoming easier for small businesses to raise funds. We have more and more NBFCs coming in. You're seeing that huge influx, particularly over the last year or two. My question, however, is the challenges around, one, being able to access that finance, and two, also the cost of accessing that finance, because it is definitely being lent out at a much more higher rate of interest. Are you happy with the kind of innovation we're seeing between finance and technology? Yeah, much more you'd like to see?
I think the confluence of tech and finance is more to do with access. Access to the platform and not access to funds. It's very important to understand. If I have to give credit to somebody, I have to follow the laws of the country and the credit verification process, no matter whether I do it on a piece of paper or I do it through an app, or I go to an NBFC, or I go to a bank. The process is the same, and that's across the world. The only difference is that every institution has a sensitivity of tolerance when they do funding, and they have a risk profile. So if I'm going to nationalize bank, the risk profile is different than the risk profile an NBFC has. Having said that, there's a common minimum that I think is established in the credit market, and it is irrespective of the fact that whether you're using technology for it or you're going manual. Technology just makes it more intuitive, the interaction becomes more smoother, and the process becomes a little faster. But that is no way a qualification, I would say it doesn't accelerate the qualification in any manner.
See, even in the different kinds of NBFC banks offering loans, for example, you constantly keep seeing pre-approved loans against credit card. If your credit card limit is very high, then you get the loan really instantaneously. You just hit a button and no paperwork, nothing really. To a business which actually has more solid foundation, which is looking for numbers against its invoice, for example, we don't have a procedure in our country easily. You have to look at 2 years income tax. What if the company is like less than 2 years old? You're just not basically eligible. So I think there's a lot of banks prudency norms. I don't know whether RBI has to change some norms. Banks and lending institutions will have to take some degree of risk if they really want to take a good slice of this particular business. But a lot of changes are needed.
As part of the MSME Day earlier this year, the SME Day earlier this year, a couple of things, 3 things in fact, that most SMEs and entrepreneurs raised. One was on funding, and we've discussed that in length. The second thing that we must discuss this evening is the ease of using technology, and all of you here are in some way involved with technology, and most small businesses and entrepreneurs have said they want some sort of soft intervention on the part of the government when it comes to using technology, whether it's becoming more computer friendly, mentors, funding, etc. So just a quick round of question to everyone on this panel in terms of how you see that really working for entrepreneurs.
So I think there is no other train but the tech train today. I think it is, the sooner we understand this as a community, the better it is. Luckily, as we are actually far ahead than a lot of, I would say, a lot of countries in terms of tech adoption at the grassroots level. I think whether we talk of funding, whether we talk of credits, whether we talk of operations, whether we talk of marketing, or even employee engagement, which is key, and compliances, I think all of these today are somehow tech-driven. Compliance, I mean, we all struggle with compliance as a community in SME. Tech is a key enabler for compliance, whether it is GST, whether it is taxation, whether it is accruals, whether it is revenue recognition, is a key component of managing compliance. If I need credit today, I need to be compliant. If I have tech as an inherent, I would say an inherent component of my business, it becomes all the more easy for me being compliant. And I think that is the root, that's the start point of a lot of tech adoption. Most industries started adopting tech at the compliance level, then operations, then sales and marketing, and then that's where the pyramid is. It's always been finance centric. I think tech adoption, as when we say soft intervention, I think it's already there, because by the fact that we are now looking at compliances that are more watertight, there is no other option but to look at tech as an enabler to make it simple for everybody, both the government and the community.
What will really work is public-private partnership there. So for example, what happened with passport application, right? That's a very good example of a very complicated process being simplified through technology.
Let's break down that word tech itself, technology itself. So your company, whatever domain you are in, it has a process. So you'll have to model that process. Technology helps you there. You'll have to get those parts of that process that can be automated so that you can get some people off those manual works, which will reduce the error. So automation, technology can help you there. And finally, what do all these processification and automation do really help you to is it frees up time so that you can provide a higher value to your end user or your customer. So finally, it comes down to a better customer experience made possible by technology, because it automates a process, it reduces error, it speeds things up, it smoothens things, and so on.
I want to talk about reports which are suggesting that over the past 2 decades, most of your jobs have been created in urban India, in urban markets. And my question to all of you is, how do we ensure that it's been evenly distributed? How do we ensure tier 3, tier 4s also then participating in the kind of growth that we're seeing as far as SMEs and the growth really that they're creating?
So the urban students should be made to go to the rural places, and rural people all want to come to our urban, and there has to be an exchange. Minus that exchange at a fundamental level, it becomes everybody wants to come to urban, and that puts tremendous pressure on the cities.
What role do educational institutions and companies like yourself have in creating these jobs outside of the metros?
In fact, actually the government gives subsidies for industries which are prepared to go and invest in a backward area. That is the good thing to do. Tax concessions, things like that. I am sure all these things are even today available for investments in backward areas. But very often, if they go to backward areas, there are so many other costs which they will have to bear. The infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure. So government will have to provide the minimum infrastructure everywhere so that industries which go to backward area do not really come to serious grief.
India is 128 crore people. Most of the policies and laws are formed only for the top 10%. The remaining 90% is completely under stress at every point of time. I think the country needs to balance everybody, and that is when we as a society can grow. Policy made only for the top 10% and talent and potential, and you can talk everything, but the society is not like that. It's a very divided society. It is our responsibility of the people at the top to pull the people from down. That is when we can build a great India. Otherwise, we are facing a problem which the 50% of the India is looking at the other people with distress, large unemployment, And this is, that's the problem we are facing.
Sure. Reports suggesting that less than 5% of all funding that came into the ecosystem for 2017 went into businesses that had been set up by women. How do you think this can be changed?
Okay, I always believe that rather than blaming the government or anybody else saying we've not got funds, my question is how many of you are aware that there are funds? What are you doing to actually go and get those funds? Are you actually getting your presentations right? Are you actually making the right pitches to the right people? The challenge is because of society, because of your own internal mindset and a lot of other things, you give up much before the world gives up on you. So my question is, yes, there are challenges, and like Mr. Kumaravel said, both men and women face challenges. I agree. There are a different set of challenges women face. And if you need to break and reach the notion of the glass ceiling, which you believe exists and only 5% is given to you, what are you doing at your end to ensure that you go there and get there? There are enough women forums, there are enough business forums to help you reach there. Are you going and asking for it? Ask and you shall get is what I believe.
Given the fact that we are here in Chennai, talk about some of the inherent advantages and the inherent perhaps disadvantages, if you can call it that, for an entrepreneur who's based here, whatever industry you're in. One or two things, maybe one advantage, one disadvantage, and if you're saying it's an advantage, how perhaps you see entrepreneurs being able to leverage that, and if you're saying disadvantage, what is the solution to that? And
one clear advantage I have seen, because I don't belong to the city, I made it my home 11 years back, is that you encourage entrepreneurship in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu in particular, which I have not seen in many other states in this country. The social network, the kind of mentors you have, the kind of, you're allowed to fail and then get up and walk again. I've not seen that, and you're allowed in terms of, people, if you go and fail and tell them you failed, there'll be 10 people telling you, hey, you know what? Let me tell you what to do. So that's a clear advantage I see in Chennai. One of the other disadvantages is, yes, as a woman entrepreneur in particular, there are certain do's and don'ts that I do need to maintain every now and then, because otherwise there are labels given to me in business which I may not want because it hampers my growth in the industry.
Sure. We've run completely out of time. Thank you again for being a wonderful audience and for being a wonderful panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our show tonight. We love hearing from you, and if you have any questions for us, do let us know. As always, here's how you get in touch. leadersoftomorrow@tanzgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. Also get in touch with us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow and ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.